Good morning, members of committee, staff members of the public and media. My name, as you all know, is Karl Andrus, Executive Director of the Hamilton Community Benefits Network and Vice Chair of the Community Benefits Protocol Committee. I am here today to support the motion before you, the development of the Community Benefits Protocol or Social Value Framework. The creation of the Community Benefits Committee was moved and voted on when Jason Farr and Matthew Green were city councillors in 2018. The Community Benefits Protocol Subcommittee's terms of reference were established in 2019, approved by Council in 2022, and amended by Council in 2023. The Community Benefits Protocol Committee's terms of reference set out a broad mandate to explore how community benefits programs, or social value, as some organizations are now calling it, could be established within the City of Hamilton. The first Community Benefits Protocol Subcommittee meeting was finally held on September 28th, 2023. So what are the community benefits or social value concepts, and how can they help the City of Hamilton? Broadly, the ideals behind the community benefits movement are about inclusive economic development, asking the core question of how do we get more from the money we're already spending. Broadly, they are split into three core initiatives: community employment benefits, encouraged by the federal government for municipalities to establish to receive spending, especially from new housing and transit initiatives. Asking how do we create more jobs, opportunities from infrastructure spending to employ locally to give a hand up to people on OW, ODSP, or other marginalized groups to get into careers through the projects we're building. Social procurement, which is about choosing local businesses and groups we wish to encourage, support, and uplift, rather than foreign or out-of-town organizations. And community benefit agreements, which are used in large public and private construction projects to give residents more of a voice in that development and find opportunities to add environmental, social, economic, and other social value or community benefits to the project. We are spending billions on operation and capital projects regularly. How do we make those dollars work better in our local economy to support Hamilton residents and businesses and build a more thriving, inclusive economy? Well, community benefits or social value is one of the key tools that many municipalities are moving forward in establishing to do just that. As you can see from this chart, despite starting this work as a city in 2018, we've made little progress on this file, and Toronto is significantly ahead of us in 2025. Note the chart only goes to 2020. I ran out of space. Even as we are falling behind smaller municipalities and cities as they invest time, staff, and energy in moving forward these project works. Although we intended to start early in 2018 as a community, and staff have done some minor work on this project over the last 8 years. The committee and staff have made little progress without dedicated resources and support, and we are falling behind as a city. With the challenges from the United States and ongoing policies of the current American administration making a direct challenge to our local economy, finding creative ways to support increasing the efficiency of how we spend is key. Projects large and small can better support the Hamilton economy, from the materials our contractors use to build and to who they employ. How does staff spend on products and catering? Do they spend it locally? Do they spend it with other areas? Maximizing how efficiently spent our valuable tax-paying revenue can act as a force multiplier for good, is what the core of community benefits social value movements are all about. Now it is this time for the Council to provide the resources to light a fire, to support the committee's work, and make some significant progress this year on this file. For those that know, today is actually my birthday, and I have a simple wish, that this council find a very meager amount in this budget to invest in staff capacity to support the work of the Community Benefits Committee, so that by the end of this term of council, we can close the gap on other cities and make substantial gains on the community benefits social value policy in the City of Hamilton. It's a small investment to request a large return in an inclusive economic development for this city. Thank you very much, and I can take any questions.
Thank you, Delegate Andrus, and happy birthday on behalf of General Issues Committee today. Are there any questions for our delegate this morning? At this moment, I'm not seeing any questions. Thank you so much, Karl, for coming out today. And again, happy birthday. Enjoy the rest of your day. At this moment, could I please have a mover and a seconder to receive the delegation? Moved by Councillor Kretsch, seconded by Councillor Tattison. All in favor via a show of hands. And I'm going to trust that the folks online also raise their hand. I just can't see with the presentation up. But pending that, that carried unanimously. Yeah. To motion 9.4, this is the development of a community benefits protocol or social value framework. Councillor Kretsch, would you please introduce your motion and your seconder?
Yeah, my seconder's left the meeting. Councillor Huang was my seconder.
Councillor Wang is in the meeting and would be happy to second.
Sorry. Hi, Hi, Councillor Huang. Councillor Huang is my seconder. I'm going to try and simplify what's happening here. I've had extensive conversations with the city clerk about this. I've talked to the general manager, Angela Burden, about this to try and make it make sense. And so it's put here in a form I think that has tried to be as simplified as possible. During the budget process, there was a discussion as to where some funding should be allocated, and council ultimately decided not to allocate additional funding of $75,000 to community benefits. What GM Burden said at the time was, well, we have this other kind of funding that hasn't quite been allocated yet. That's another additional $75,000, and our plans were to perhaps make it as part of a social procurement pilot, but if council wanted to, it could take that $75,000 that already exists and has no tax impact and have it be allocated to community benefits. And when she said that, I sent an email saying, okay, great, let's catch up about that online after the budget process if the motion fails. The motion failed, here we are. So I'm just simply saying, in support of what Delegate Andrus said earlier about having a community benefits protocol subcommittee and doing this work is foundational to the procurement process. So this is the first step. Without this, the foundation of social value and the foundation of community benefits won't be there to do the procurement pilot work. So this is the first part, and we're trying to move the funding over here so we can carry it on. The risk of not doing this is that we will have to kind of suspend the community benefits protocol subcommittee for the rest of the term of council because there are no staff we have here without this funding to hire someone outside to do the work. And staff have said that pretty loudly and clearly. They don't have the expertise to do the work of developing a community benefits protocol. The $75,000 will allow us to hire an outside consultant to help us do that work and complete the committee's mandate. For those who don't know, the community benefits protocol subcommittee's entire mandate is to come up with a community benefits protocol. Then that gives us tools as a city to actually implement community benefits. So we want to get this done in this term of council. It's been around for 7 years now as a conversation. Getting the protocol finished this year or next year in this term of council, I think it's important to get it done to demonstrate to residents that we take this work seriously and want to do it. And then the committee would dissolve after it was done and the protocol would have a different life and there'd be recommendations as part of that process for what to do next. Hope I've made it as simple as I could. Happy for questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Kretsch. On our speakers list is Councillor Jackson, followed by Councillor Danko, then Councillor Clark.
I have a point of order before we go into discussion.
Well, I'll hear your point of order.
So in the budget process, it wasn't just funding. It was a two-part motion that was defeated in the budget. And I'll read that verbatim. The budget motion that was defeated was A, that $75,000 be allocated to support the hiring of a consultant to develop a draft community benefits protocol or social value framework. And B, and this is the important part, that staff be directed to develop a scope of work to meet the objective of developing a draft community benefits protocol or social value framework and oversee the consultant's work. So
Councillor Danko, can you help me get to your point of order? I appreciate you're maybe building a case, but can you help me get to the conclusion so I can?
The point of order is that direction for staff to manage the consultant's work and to work on developing the protocol or framework was defeated. So we can't now move forward with developing a protocol without staff's involvement because staff always have to be involved in managing of a report back of recommendations of the what the final work is going to be. Staff has to work with the consultant in order to do this work. And the direction for staff to do that was defeated. So what directions before us today cannot go forward without first reconsideration, direction for staff.
So your point of order is that there should be a reconsideration?
Yes. And we had extensive discussion about this with the clerk and the GMs in advance of the procurement subcommittee.
Thank you. I'm going to turn to Clerk Trenum and just, if there's any advice you'd like to offer to the chair at this time, it would be appreciated.
So, Chair, my interpretation of reading it after discussion with staff would have been that this was solely in relation to the use of that funds and not necessarily to do we want to do that work. I would agree that the second clause should have all been a singular clause and tied to the $75,000. I think it was worded awkwardly in the motion itself. I think the intent of the motion and how I interpret it would be that it's related to the budget only because it was a budget item and a funding piece and not related to council's decision on whether or not they'd like to do that particular work. So I would advise that it's not necessarily a reconsideration and perhaps seek advice from staff to see on the staff piece whether or not there is involvement or ability to even do this work should the $75,000 be reallocated to this instead of the other thing. But my interpretation of reading it, it's not a reconsideration, but I would leave that to you to, of course, make your determination.
Councillor Danko, if you'd like to ask a question to staff about kind of that workload, I'm happy to make a ruling kind of at the end if you think there's more information that, you know, needs to be brought out through asking a question, getting the answer to that piece, and then I'm happy to rule. I want to just give you an opportunity to maybe ask those questions to staff first.
Can a consultant be hired without any staff involvement to set the terms of reference for the deliverables, to set the scope of work, to tender the contract, to hire the consultant, to work with the consultant through their deliverables, to have a report back to council, and to have a final recommendation with zero staff involvement? Because if staff are not involved in any way, then sure, it's not reconsideration. If staff are involved, then you first need to reconsider the direction that said, no, they can't be.
I'm appreciating the commentary that you're bringing forward. I am going to actually borrow Clerk Trenum's analysis that it was a budget motion that is you're referencing. It was about financial dispensation in the same way that motions were ruled out of order for not being retaining to the budget and being about policy, understanding that there is a difficulty in the language of the motion that talks about enabling that. It would be my ruling, and again, I can be challenged as the chair, that this is not a reconsideration because of the context of it being a budget motion, the context of it being a vote on the allocation of the $75,000 within this year from that proposed funding source. Moving the same funding source within the same budget year, I would absolutely consider a reconsideration. To me, this is looking at different funding sources, different programs, and is not a reconsideration. Would be my ruling on that.
Not a surprise, but thank you.
Okay. So,
excuse me.
okay, yeah, Councillor Maureen Wilson, if you're rising on a point of personal privilege or a point of order, I can recognize you. Otherwise, I'm going to go to the speakers list.
I'm not sure. I mean, my integrity hasn't been questioned or impugned.
I have Councillor we did Councillor. Apologies, the speakers list has changed around a little bit. We've done Councillor Danko, but we have not come to Councillor Jackson yet. So I have Councillor Jackson on the speakers list, and then Councillor Danko, are you there also as a speaker, but you raised a point of order originally? Oh, okay, so we have, thank you, I now understand what's happening. We have Councillor Jackson on our speakers list, followed by Councillor Danko, then Councillor Clark. If others would like to join the speakers list, they're welcome to do so. Councillor Jackson, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Alex Wilson. Try to provide a little lightheartedness during this very long and challenging meeting. So every part of my being, given that I voted against this during the budget, should say to stay consistent, regardless of different funding source here today, that I should continue to vote against this. And in this new era on council, I'm constantly told, reminded, admonished, process, Tom, policy, Tom, can't deviate, process, policy. Well, you know what? I'm going to say in all sincerity, I'm going to support this, and I'm going to support it because of Mr. Karl Andrus and his late great mother, who have constantly been advocating in our community for these type of benefits to those that do not have the wherewithal in society or are on limited social, disposable income, minimal disposable income. He has appeared here repetitively to make the case. You know I'm not involved in the project overall, but he is consistently saying as a champion that these community benefits protocol are incredibly important and people cannot be left behind. And so on an individual matter and note, I'm going to support this. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Alex Wilson.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. On our speakers list, we have Councillor Danko, followed by Councillor Clark as first-time speakers. Councillor Danko.
Thank you. So big picture in terms of community benefits, the idea that we can leverage city contracts, city spending for a broader community benefit, I totally support that. The traditional sense of that is, for example, you have a contractor that is bringing in catering, that they hire a local catering company. Some contractors, one I know in particular, they import all of their labor from Labrador. So they bring in labor from Labrador, they stay in a hotel, they work on contracts, it's not local, versus a contractor that hires local workers. So I think there's definitely room to formalize a community benefits process so that when we are spending money as a municipality, that it does have the broadest community benefit as possible. My only hesitation with moving forward with this is some of the language and direction that is coming out of the Community Benefits Protocol Subcommittee. Things like we want direction that the social procurement program prioritizes Indigenous-owned, diverse-owned, and equity-deserving businesses and social enterprises. In my mind, and procurements especially, is highly regulated, that to be as open and transparent and fair as possible. If we're going down that road to have discriminatory procurement processes, it's going to be a problem. And I think, we started off today with the issue of the Barton Tiffany shelters, and that's a perfect example of an outcome of a procurement process that may not have followed the by-the-book procurement, and that favored Indigenous-owned company. Is that really where we want to go as a municipality, setting that in stone for a procedure processes? So I'm hesitant if it's what the community benefits committee and Karl Andrus and those groups have been proposing for years. I am totally fine with that. If it's risking morphing into discriminatory procurement policies, I'm going to have a real issue with that. And I'm hesitant in committing to spending $75,000 today, not knowing which way it's going to go, because it has a lot to do with which consultant is hired, which guidance are they given from staff, what guidance are they given from the subcommittee. If it's going to go that direction, we will, in my opinion, be wasting $75,000. So as Councillor Jackson said, I'll give the committee the benefit of the doubt because there is a value to a formalized community benefits process, but not at the expense of a rigorous process that's fair and open, transparent to everyone. Thank you.
Next on our speakers list, we have Councillor Clark.
Thank you. So just try to get some clarification, I guess, from the director or general manager. My apologies. Assume this money is provided to this program. Who's in charge of the development of the protocol? Is it the consultant? And is staff directly involved to ensure that the protocol is compliant with our policies that we already have in place? We have social procurement, I understand. I don't know if we have any procurement staff here, but we already do a lot of this stuff, so I just want to verify.
Thank you. Angie Burden, General Manager of Community Services. Through you, Chair, to the Councillor. The resources that we had allocated or were planning to allocate for the $75,000 project to do a social value procurement pilot would be redirected to oversee the consultant who would now be engaged to develop the social value procurement, the social value framework and the community benefits protocol. So staff will be engaged. The mandate of the Community Benefits Subcommittee is to develop a protocol and a framework, and we would, in the same way, continue to bring this forward to the subcommittee so they could fulfill their mandate.
Thank you for that. Supplemental, if I may, Deputy Mayor. Who is going to be interacting with the vendors to ensure that social procurement policies are being valued and are being complied with?
So through the chair to the councillor, the importance of having the framework in place is to develop the guiding principles by which we would have a comprehensive community benefits protocol for the city. One part of that is social value procurement. Director Ayako is not online today, but has spoken in the, oh, she is? Oh, I will defer to the director to speak directly to the social procurement policies. Thanks, Tina.
There she is.
Good afternoon, Director Tina Ayako, through the chair. To be honest with you, Councillor Clark, I'm not sure if staff have confirmed who would be the direct conduit into the consultant. I think that's yet to be determined. For the, there were $75,000 that was asked through one of the reports that went initially to the Community Benefits Protocol Committee and then got deferred to the Procurement Subcommittee. And that's this amount of money. And that was for small scale pilots, a consultant to assist procurement specifically with setting up the training and protocol and whatever the infrastructure in order to sustain social value procurement. With respect to developing the framework for social procurement in its totality, I'm not exactly sure what staff has been allocated to do that work and to be that liaison with the consultant. I'm not sure if it's totally procurement or a joint effort between procurement and healthy and safe communities.
Well, I would hope that we can find out what that is. I'm just wondering who has the resources or mandate to oversee the project if it's approved. So if we approve the 75,000 to retain a consultant to give us advice to procurement as to how we would deal with this, I'm just wanting to verify that there is going to be someone from procurement that is assistant. That is not a group of individuals trying to build a protocol with a consultant with no direct input from our procurement department.
So through the chair, council in the restructuring of procurement, council did approve one FTE that is a senior project manager, and part of her work plan at the moment is to develop a social value procurement initiative. So I would still ask her, our SPM, to work with the consultant. I would be involved as well, but I'm not thinking that the scope of work at this point for the consultant would be solely with procurement. I want to say that it's a joint effort between procurement and Healthy and Safe Communities and possibly any other client department within the city who needs to give feedback into that. So I think it's a joint effort on staff's part, but certainly procurement would be involved.
Thank you. GM Burden?
Thank you. Through you, Chair, to the Councillor. I can confirm that the accountability for working with the consultant lies with myself and Community Services. We have a manager of strategic initiatives who will be engaged with the RFP and the scope of work. We will be engaging both General Manager Zagaric and Director Iacco, as well as Director Iacco's procurement team. And as a reminder, this will come back to the Community Benefits Subcommittee and then eventually to Council for approval.
Thank you. I appreciate the clarification on the accountability. It's important that I understand who's going to be in charge. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. I'll just offer I appreciate that clarity as well. I'm sure committee does. Councillor Taddison, you're next on our list.
I will say that I sit on the subcommittee, and much to the chagrin of many of my counterparts that also sit on it, I did vote against this at the budget, but I voted for it against the budget because I thought we could find alternative funding to do the work. That's been done now, and so I fully do support this. There is other work that does involve, and we were looking at pilot projects and so forth that could go forward that didn't involve the whole gamut that we're looking at right now. So I didn't see that this was a threat to the subcommittee by voting against it then. So I just would like to say that I'm very appreciative to the councillor for bringing this forward and looking into this deeper, because it is definitely needed. I've heard it. And if there's anyone who sits around this chamber that wants to have more participation in that subcommittee, I will cede my chair to them. And if not, then I'll have conversations with them so that I can bring their concerns forward at that time.
Thank you, Councillor Taddison. That extinguishes our first-time speakers. So I'm going to go to second-time speakers and Councillor Danko.
Thank you. So I was just trying to find my notes in preparation for this discussion in procurement. But I'll ask them now if I can remember. As part of the consultations, why isn't Public Works directly involved? Public Works issues the vast majority of value of city contracts that will have the biggest impact, but their department isn't part of the direct staff team. So how will Public Works be involved?
Thank you. Through you, Chair, to the councillor. The setup of the Community Benefits Subcommittee has always been that we have a staff liaison from each of the divisions and departments within the city. And as they've been required, they have attended subcommittee meetings. The same would hold true for the development of the framework. As if approved, we would go forward and engage across the corporation as required.
Thank you. And then similar to that, as this consultant is going to be developing this protocol, what I don't see here and what we've always included in these kinds of initiatives is stakeholder engagement. So in particular, when I was reading the reports for the procurement subcommittee, and it had a comparisons to other municipalities and what went well and what hasn't went well, or resistance, most of the resistance in other municipalities came from the construction sector that we're finding that these kinds of protocols very onerous and not conducive to their business. So are we going to be formally engaging with stakeholders, including, for example, the Hamilton Halton Construction Association, major unions like LIUNA, CLAC, the Carpenters, the Chamber of Commerce, economic development, those broad stakeholders who are going to actually be impacted by these policies, how are they going to be, how is their input going to be considered?
Thank you. Through you, Chair, to the councillor. I would ask Director Iacco to speak to some of the work that has been done. There has been research and some work already presented to the subcommittee, and we would be building on that with the development of the framework.
Through the chair, certainly those associations we would reach out to them. So there are a number of different associations that we would contemplate speaking to and getting their feedback on. Certainly equity deserving groups, other community organizations, connector organizations, but also so that is on the social side. We also would do extensive consultation with the trades, with particularly construction. And so we had some lessons learned from our pilots that we ran in 2019, where we did get some pushback, certainly from the trade organizations. And should we implement social value procurement once again, we will make sure that we liaise with them to ensure that we have their buy-in and to see if they could support us in our initiatives. And also I want to just be mindful that we are 5-6 years from when we ran these pilots. So 5-6 years ago, Hamilton was at the forefront of implementing social value procurement. Since then, a number of other municipalities have certainly moved forward with social value. So it's not a new thing in the market. And I would have to assume that there's some acceptance from contractors that in order to bid on municipal projects, this is something that they'd have to comply with and participate with. So I'm expecting that not to have as much pushback as we had in 2019, but certainly there would be that consultation with them and trying to work forward with them in harmony.
Thank you. And just a final comment. I will be voting in favor. As I said, I think this is important work, and I want to give it the benefit of the doubt. My hesitation, again, and it's been confirmed in this discussion, is that we've spent a lot of time hearing from equity-deserving groups and the concerns and the needs and their perspective on these kinds of processes and protocols. But what we're missing is the stakeholders, the people who are actually doing the work, the vendors that are delivering the services, the people that are working in the trades, the business people that are bidding on city contracts. So if we're going to refocus this work on those organizations, those stakeholders, I'm all in favor. If we're going to stick with only listening to, the equity deserving groups, when the report back comes back, it's going to be an issue. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have anyone else on our speakers list, and this was moved by Councillor Crutch and seconded by Councillor Wang. And no one's raised their hand while I've said those sentences, so now we're at the point where we vote. The vote will be up on eScribe momentarily, and it's now up. And that carries 12-0.